Good morning, everyone. Yeah, welcome to Mangala Talkies. My name is Mangala Talkies. Of course not. My name is not Mangala Talkies, but I'm thankful to Mangala Talkies for giving me this chance to share my thoughts today. Today is 2nd of February 2025. I am in London and I can see my neighbor walking his dog, and there's a glorious sunshine outside. I don't know if you can see the reflection of it, but then because of that, the lighting in the room has gone slightly wonky, but I don't care. You don't get so much sunshine in London, so I'm just going to enjoy and keep this lighting. I'm going to leave for the producers to worry about the lighting and how I look in the video. Again, I was reading morning newspapers, and then all the newspaper headlines are dominated by Trump slapping the tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. I used the names of the countries in this order because that is important: Canada, Mexico, and China. So, China is third country here, and which piqued my interest. There is a lower tariff being slapped on China. The tariff story is not fully formed. I am still reading about it. I have not fully comprehended what it means for like people in US, Canada, Mexico, China. So I've not seen the impact of it. But I thought of sharing something else. I thought of sharing. There is a big story, yeah, which is again in the process of slow unfold. But then I don't know what is your area of interest. But then I have a feeling that you'll find the story interesting. The story is about TikTok. I know I don't look like someone who enjoys a TikTok experience, but the story of TikTok I find very, very fascinating. So, TikTok is obviously a small video sharing app developed by a company called TikTok, which is owned by a company called ByteDance. In India, obviously, TikTok has been banned since I think 2020, and TikTok was banned citing security concerns. Security concerns were cited not just in India but elsewhere too. Donald Trump in 2020 was, or even before that, he was extremely hawkish on China and on TikTok. So he also tried to ban TikTok using executive order. Even before that, during Donald Trump's campaign days, he was extremely hawkish on China. He was extremely disparaging, aggressive against China.
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. We may be doing some other things. There are a couple of options, but a lot of things are happening. So we'll see what happens. But we are looking at a lot of alternatives with respect to TikTok.
Now I'm going to free associate few things, and I hope my whole attempt is to give you a full picture, and very soon you will see the associations. So to start with, Trump started with extremely hawkish on China. That was his view. And when TikTok was banned in India, there was a strong wind in favor of banning TikTok in the states as well. That is where it started. Now, TikTok, I don't know if you've seen, but then TikTok or you've experienced. So here in UK, I needed to download TikTok for one of the like a small coaching that I needed. Small coaching where obviously I was the trainee, but then for that, they encouraged all their students that we are on TikTok too. And then there are TikTok updates that we do, and which is when I got to see the power of TikTok. So TikTok is extremely popular. TikTok is extremely addictive. It just doesn't stop once you start scrolling it. So there is that element. So the algorithm is very strong, and most people think that that algorithm reads every keystroke. That algorithm reads everything that is going on, and then it caters to your needs. So TikTok is extremely popular, and with every passing day, it is getting more and more popular. That's about TikTok. So when the reason TikTok was concerned as a security concern is ByteDance, the holding company of TikTok. So they have clear association with CCP, which is Chinese Communist Party. That means the entire data that they have access to can also be accessed by CCP, Chinese Communist Party, and which is why this was considered as a uh, unfair advantage by an adversary, and which is why it was cited as a security concern. Modi government banned TikTok along with almost 50 apps, 50 Chinese apps in one stroke. So they used the Information Technology Act to ban all these applications. Similar ban was discussed in United States as well, and which is when in United States they decided to introduce a ban. They drafted a bill. That bill was called as Protesting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Application Act. This act was discussed in the American Congress. Along with that, the CEO of TikTok also was questioned. I wouldn't say questioned, but then he also went through a rigorous process where he needed to answer questions to the committee members. And then he did that for almost 4.5 hours. And it was, I believe, fully telecast because I've seen the portions of it, and I've seen the portions of it on YouTube. I don't know if the entire committee hearing and the question and answer were telecast or not. But then he went through that ringer. He went through that grind of question and answer. There were jokes that people, so this is even longer than marathon. There are people who complete marathon under 4.5 hours. At this point, I must mention that I have also completed my marathon under 4.5 hours. So that was the discussion around TikTok. And then they introduced this bill that I just mentioned, where a bill basically was going to stop the application sellers. So in this case, Google Apps and Apple. So Play Store and App Store. Basically, so they are going to stop these two from selling any of these applications. And this act was going to stop TikTok being sold on their platform. So that is how the act was going to unfold. Again, because this was matter of national security, the unity between two parties. So this is America. So two parties were Democratic Party and Republican Party. Suddenly they unified the forces and it became a bipartisan bill. Very, very few congressmen or congresswomen, because I'm going to mention one. So they decided to vote against it. Again, what was the driving force behind this law and behind this thesis of banning an application? So in US, the freedom of expression is protected by something called as First Amendment. Now, First Amendment is almost sacrosanct. The reason I'm saying almost, because there are various case laws which create exception, but still it is considered as sacrosanct, and there are people who can fight to death with you on First Amendment. Many people attribute US's success on First Amendment. So, using the provisions in First Amendment, they tried to ban TikTok in US. So, this act predicated on First Amendment principles. Again, people who voted against, so there were, despite calling it as a national security concern, there were people who voted against this bill. And the reasons that they cited is that this is hasty. We needed more discussion. We need more evidence. Now, this part, I personally, I find very fascinating. This is democracy. You should question, but then usually when people get questioned on national security, people question the integrity of the questioner. People question the integrity of the person who is asking this question. That how dare you ask question about national security? But this is the beauty of US. So this is one of the reasons why I like US. I'm very America-phile, but there are few things where obviously the system is a bit flawed. I'll come to that in the course of the conversation. So there were people who questioned that, no, I would like to see the evidence of what national security concern that you have. The other concern which was sought is the First Amendment, that this is going against the principle of First Amendment. There are 17 million users of TikTok in United States. This is against their freedom of expression. Both the arguments can be considered valid, but then they decided to use these arguments to vote against the bill. Fascinating. At least I found it fascinating. Still, the bill carried. Bill got bill was voted in favor overwhelmingly. I think that happened in April 2024. But then still few questions remained, and which is when this bill was presented in Supreme Court. Now, in Supreme Court, usually the questions of constitutionality are presented. That means whether this bill is against freedom of expression or not. So that was the question. So this bill went to Supreme Court. Now, enter Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, in between, obviously lost election, and now Joe Biden is the president. So Donald Trump is not president anymore. He doesn't have say on these things. He can have opinion, but he cannot decide. He changed his tune on TikTok. He was extremely hawkish on TikTok, but then now he's not that hawkish on TikTok anymore. What changed? Few things. One thing that changed is there is a fellow called Jeff Yass. So Yass is Yass. That's his last name. So he is one of the donors of Trump campaign. So he gave a hefty donation to the Trump campaign. He is also an investor in TikTok and ByteDance. He is also an investor in Truth Social. This is a social media platform owned by Trump. So clearly now Trump is associated with Jeff Yass through these means. And Jeff Yass can influence Trump's opinion. Looks like he has influenced Trump's opinion. Word is influence. This is open democracy. Okay, that's one. Number two, during Trump's campaign, so he had many advisors. Some of the advisors were IT geniuses. They decided to double down on the TikTok campaigning. So on TikTok, Trump had huge presence. Now, TikTok is mainly used by young under 30s. And so, which is where Trump had huge presence and Trump managed to win their votes. So it is not, you cannot deny that TikTok played a part in Trump's election victory. So now Trump is not that hawkish on TikTok anymore. So he thinks that no, TikTok should stay. So what he has done, so first thing that he has done, not first, but then one of the first things that he has done since he's become president is that again he has signed the executive order. You must have seen this like a typical visual of Trump where he makes that big signature with a marker pen, with a Sharpie, and then he'll show it to the world. And the whole executive order looks almost like a menu card, but then that's what he's showing to people that, okay, I've signed something. He has signed an executive order which puts a pause on the whole ban on TikTok. Pause. Okay, because now there is an act which is passed in Congress. He will have to introduce another act to repeal this act. That's one. And this act not just was passed in Congress, it was validated by Supreme Court. So all Trump at this moment could do is that sign an executive order and start TikTok back. That is what he's done. So he has started TikTok back. TikTok released a thank you message on their application. Thanks to President Trump, we are back in business. Okay. Now, 3 to 4 years ago, you were hawkish on this application, on this company. But then now you are quite pally. Now you are quite friendly. And world is watching. Not just that. Obviously, we just learned that Jeff Yass's association with Donald Trump Jeff Yass had a seat at Trump inauguration. Not just Jeff Yass, but TikTok CEO Shao Chu. So he also had a seat at the inauguration ceremony. Again, it says something. What it says that I think people can decide for themselves. What's the future of TikTok? So TikTok obviously has 17 million users. There are 5 million, that's the estimated number of creators who are dependent on TikTok. So there is a 5 million creator economy which is currently running on the back of TikTok. So what are the options? So the options are that you cut off your ties with the Chinese Communist Party. How can you cut off your association with Chinese Communist Party? One way to do it is sell the entire company to any American entity. So that way, the ownership and the controllership that will stay in United States. So it will cease to be foreign adversary controlled application. It will be American controlled application. And then TikTok can run and prosper in United States. That's one option. Then the second option is that this is the option which was also discussed during Biden administration, that there is something called as Project Texas. So Project Texas is where they can move their data centers to United States and Oracle can help them with it. So Oracle was one of the company which was being discussed. So that was Project Texas. So it is again back on table. It is getting discussed. Then the third option is that United States can just buy 51% in this company and get the controllership in United States. Problem with this statement is, in fact, Trump loves this idea. Trump loves this idea that he can have one of the social media company under his thumb now that he is president. Trump loves this idea, but problem is that in a capitalist society where you are encouraging private enterprise, suddenly there is a government intervention and suddenly there is a government player. So these are not signs of a capitalist economy. This is socialism. There is a word for it, and that is socialism. So these are the options, and currently this is being discussed. So although TikTok has this extended life, but we don't know how long this life will go on in United States. It will be a big deal whatever happens with TikTok. So I will revisit because I am fascinated by this story. Because there are so many aspects to it that I can just go on, like take one thread and go on with that thread forever. Because another idea that was discussed by Trump was not by Trump himself, but then people close to Trump, is that now Trump's new BFF, new best friend forever, Elon Musk, can buy TikTok. In that case, Trump already owns Twitter. He will have TikTok also. So just imagine the kind of influence that Elon Musk will have if that happens. That's one. Last point, which is even more important, is in all this, because all the names that I mentioned were, I think, like most of the names at least, were American. One name or one entity that I've not really talked about, or we don't get to hear much, is the Chinese Communist Party. I don't know why I always fumble on this word, Chinese Communist Party. I'm just going to call it CCP. We've not heard what they think. All they have said so far is that we are not interested in accessing this data. That's all. But in this tussle, they have not blinked even once. They have not said even once that we are willing to sell this to you, or we would like you to do this, or uh, let's get into a meeting room and have a discussion. They have not said any of that. They have been probably the most stable and stronger end, I would say, in this fluid like situation where everyone has changed their tune. to an extent, but not so much by CCP. So, if you want to see how the trade wars between China and USA are going to play out, maybe we have a case right in front of us. TikTok is a miniature, a microcosm of trade war between America and China. Access to data, so which is quote unquote access to data, it's constantly getting discussed, or that is the moot point here. When TikTok ban was around the corner, when people knew that, okay, after this point, it was 19th January. So after 19th of January, TikTok will disappear. So there was another application again made in China called Red Note. So which became popular and people started switching to Red Note. Everyone thought that TikTok's demise would be gain of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram's gain. No, it was gain of Red Note, which was another Chinese application. So are you winning? Maybe not with this ban. And in this whole kind of glorious chaos, a new entrant has made a bang, and that is DeepSeek. Now, DeepSeek again is going to be on your mobile phone. It is a Chinese application, and it is going to access even more data, I would say, than TikTok. What are you going to do about it? Which is why it is very, very fascinating story. And what happens to TikTok is going to happen to a lot of other things in future. So if you want to get a glimpse of if this trade war happens, so I think this is how trade war will play out. Just follow the TikTok story. That's it from me. I hope you also find TikTok story as fascinating as I find it. Now what remains for me to say is goodbye. Thank you to the producers of Mangala Talkies for giving me chance to share my thoughts. And as they remind me to tell you, please share, subscribe to this channel. Thanks very much.